Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Well, I am sweating through my shirt, which could mean only one thing. It is July in New England. Today it was in the 90s, and it's not so much the heat, it's the humidity. In fact, it is so humid, I just brought the camera up from the basement and I can see that it is fogging up. It hasn't acclimatized to this humidity, so I'm getting some condensation on the lens. Let me take care of that. That ought to last about 15 seconds. Okay, today's project. We are purchasing a new to us, fifth wheel trailer. We've decided that the kids no longer are into camping like they used to be. They've kind of outgrown it, and so we're transitioning from a bunkhouse, which we just sold, to a kind of like a rear living room type of deal or whatever. Anyways, I'll do a review on that when I get it. I've got to go to New York and pick it up. We purchased it from a private seller out in New York. That being said, the other problem I have is that the newer trailer is a Grand Design Grand Design Solitude. Momentum is a toy haul. The Grand Design Solitude, and it's a heavier trailer. It's about the same size physically as our old trailer, about 37 feet. Weight though is about 2,000 pounds more GVW, mainly because it's got a larger frame, and it's just got it's got solid surface countertops in it, and it's got more solid wood in it, and just whatever, so just heavier. So I've been using an old hitch, I mean really old hitch, and this hitch is rated for 14,000 pounds and 3,500 pin weight, or vertical rate. In other words, the amount of actual weight that is applied downward on the center of that thing. Actually worked out fine for our other trailer. We never had a mishap with it, but it turns out that this is actually like kind of pushing the limit on that other trailer. It's definitely not robust enough for the new trailer. Not only that, because it's the older design, it doesn't have a few things. It doesn't have the ability to pivot in this direction at all, which makes it difficult if you're backing in or over uneven ground. Causes problems, or can cause problems. It has no shock absorbing or buffering or anything like that in it, so it can be kind of a noisy hitch going down the road. And the other thing too is that this diameter right here, when this closes, it doesn't close. There's a little more play in here than on a modern hitch, on many modern hitches. So this has what's called the ka-chunk, or the lugging, or I forgot what they call it, but basically the ability for, as you stop, for the trailer to move forward a little bit and hit this, and then when you go to ease off and hit the accelerator again, it can kind of do this chugging thing, which is, it's unnerving. You get used to it if you've been driving as long as I have with this. So as the title to this video already shows, what I ended up going with is I ended up going with the Demco Recon 21K hitch. So the Demco Recon 21K hitch is available and able to go into the existing rails that I have. So that was a Reese hitch that I just showed you. I've got the Reese rails already mounted in the truck, and this hitch goes right into those rails. So back in the day, when this truck was made, in earlier trucks, 97 Dodge Ram, other early trucks, before they came out with what they call the puck system, they had these rails that you would bolt in and these hitches would attach to. They actually standardized those rails, so today they are referred to as ISR, or industry standard rails. So the great thing is, when you're shopping for a new hitch to go on your old rails, you basically just have to look for ISR, or industry standard rails, or some websites will just refer to it as above the bed rails, as opposed to rails that are hidden underneath and that there's some other fastening method. Well, there's one caveat to that. There are some above the bed rails that actually run the length of the truck. So those newer hitches, you would have to actually still buy the rails and install their special rail kit. Demco actually had another model that I looked at, but it was a slider and it had those special rails. And I don't need a slider because this is an 8-foot bed. So anyways, and also sliders are more expensive because there's more going on. So I started to install this thing, and then it occurred to me, hey Steve, why don't you make a video and talk about it? You know, you talk about everything else for crying out loud. So what was I looking at besides this? Well, some of the major players out there that you tend to see a lot of are Kurt, Demco, B&W, and Reese. Well, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many people out there on the interweb and dealers alike, Reese is not the king of the hill anymore. So I would not, I'm not going to go with a Reese hitch. I actually tried to purchase a used Reese hitch off of somebody, but unfortunately it was damaged. So I ended up not closing that deal on that one. That would have been okay because it was a 20K hitch and it wasn't that old, and I was getting it for $300, which, you know, would have been great, but because it was damaged, I couldn't use it at all. It was junk. So I ended up biting the bullet and buying this hitch. This hitch, just in case you're wondering, this hitch ran me $729 plus tax, which is the same price that eTrailer, a very common website, a very popular website for buying hitches, was listing it at. So $729 plus tax. That's for this 21K hitch, the Demco Recon, without the rails. If you need the rails, so you buy it with the rail kit, then this hitch goes up to like, I want to say like $950, somewhere around there. So anyways, didn't need the rails, reusing my rails. So the install is pretty straightforward. Basically, you take your old hitch out, and this will drop right in to the standard ISR rails. So what you're looking at here, this is the big thick rubber mat that I have in the bed of my truck, which had been cut out around the area where the Reese hitch mounted. Well, it turns out this hitch is narrower. So I needed to use the next holes in. So I had to cut out more material. Then I found that because of the way that this mounts, instead of having an arm that kind of comes up like this, it has an arm that comes in like this, and there's this extra strut on the bottom here. There's actually strutting in here. This is all welded, good strong material. For extra strength and rigidity, they put this piece in here, which in order to get this to go all the way down into the slots, I had to take more material off here than I had planned. But no big deal, just cut it out of the way and no problem. Once I did that, it didn't just like drop in like perfectly fine. It's a pretty tight fit. It took a little bit of persuading. You want to use something like a non-marring mallet, or what I even did was I took some of the scraps of this rubber material and put it over here so I could bash on these points right here and get this to tap down and, you know, seat well. Once I got it to a point where it was seating well, I was able to tap in the pins. So some of the pins, you see they fit loose now, and some of them are a little tight, and that's just because of little idiosyncrasies in the way that the rails might be. So I've got this mounted with all 4 pins in, and now this is what made me decide to make a video. I wanted to talk about the design of this hitch and one of the only slight issues that I'm having, and that's, now that I've got the pins in, the back side of the pins have a hole in them, and these little hair clip, or these little whatever you call them, these kind of clips, right? These clips need to be installed. On the old Reese hitch, you could easily get to the back of these pins because the arm came up like this, and this flat part down here didn't exist. Where you see my hand, this is a big flat thing, right? So let me give you a shot of that. So you see what I mean? This right here doesn't exist at all on the old hitch. So the end of this pin that I need to get this into is hidden under here. And it's far enough in that it's a little tricky. So I figure what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and reach it with pliers, and hopefully I can get that thing in there. All right, so we just got all of the little clips in, and for some reason that one there was really hard to do. So we ended up putting the pin in from the back side underneath so that the clips are on the outboard side on this one, that the clip is on the outboard side, and we were able to get that in. Then we noticed in the instructions they actually want all the clips on the outboard side, so I actually have these 3 pins in backwards. I can't imagine it makes a difference other than probably just being able to see that the clip is still there and hasn't fallen off. Alright, so now Mark's going to put the central support post in. So this goes in with the nut side of that big huge pivot bolt facing towards the cab. Oh, I probably should have mentioned it, but this clearly has a sticker that says cab pointing that way to tell you which way this could go in, because you could easily just put it in backwards. Again, I think the only reason that you need to put it in that way is because all of your warning stickers about locking and unlocking it are right here, and this is going to be the side where your handle is going to be on, so they want you to be able to see this easily when you're working the handle. So now here's another feature about this hitch that I really like, which is going to come in handy because we don't know yet what height to set this at, because we're going to pick up a trailer that we've never towed before. So on a lot of hitches, in order to change that height, you've got to undo several bolts and reconfigure it. Not a big deal if you're going to just, set it up for that one trailer and leave it that way for a long time. But with this, all you have to do to change the height is slide that up and down, and pull out this pin, slide that up and down, and then reinsert this pin. So go ahead, Mark, put this pin in.
The bottom one or the top?
So, put it in, let's see. So you don't want it so that it's underneath the whole thing. You want it in the last hole.
Like so this is raised all the way up?
That's the first hole.
Yeah.
So put it up.
So all the way up there?
Wait, all right, that, whoop, no.
No,
Right,
no.
what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna put it up and down all night, or?
Right there?
That's going under it. See, now you're under. All right, freeze.
I am?
Freeze.
Yeah.
You're under it. Watch, pull up on that. That would be bad to happen on the highway. There you go, up a little bit, right there. Now you're in the last hole. Perfect. Now put this clip in on that side. Okay, so now we've got that safety clip installed.
Now the finger pincher comes out.
What are you doing?
This comes out, so this row comes out. Put that on top and the row goes
Yeah, but we don't want to do that yet. Move off to the side there. The socks and sandals stay stop. So you may have noticed that this fit is a little sloppy. And that's actually by design. But of course, that's not really good if you're going down the road. You're going to get a lot of ka-chunk and noise. So what they do is they give you these 2 set screws right here. So the idea is once you've set your height to where you want it, you actually turn these 2 bolts in. But there are 2 jam nuts on here that you have to loosen before you run these in. So the idea is you loosen the jam nuts, run these in so that this can't do this anymore, and then tighten the jam nuts, and then you're all set. Alright, so these jam nuts are 7/8 jam nuts, and because of the way they're recessed in there, even if you have an open end wrench that size, you can't get the head of it in there. So I have the viewfinder facing me so I can see what I'm doing. So use a 7/8 deep socket. Back them off. Back it tell just by the feel that this bottom hole, when they tapped it, they got some powder coating or something on the threads maybe, I don't know. Doesn't turn as nicely, no big deal. That's what that noise is. And it's occurring to me I should have got a socket, 3/4 inch socket for this. There we go. Now tighten up the jam nuts. Okay. All right. So once you tighten the jam nuts up, that is supposed to be, that is what's supposed to keep these bolts from loosening over time and causing this to be able to rattle on you. One of the complaints I did see was somebody had mentioned that they were having a problem with these loosening up. I think once you set the height to where you need it for your trailer and you're not going to have to change it again, you probably could put some Loctite on these threads. I wouldn't use red Loctite, but the blue would probably help with that. All right, so now all we have to do is pull this pin. This is the one that Mark calls the kind that snap back on you and hurt your fingers. It's interesting. I didn't deburr that, I guess. And the head gets installed. Before I get the head on there, I just wanted to show there are 2 rubber urethane bushings or bumpers, one on this side and one on this side, so that when this is this, it's not a metal to metal contact. And in the plastic bag that came with the hitch, there was one of these extra ones. So our theory is that this is an extra one they give you in case one of these needs to be replaced over time. Why they don't give you 2, I don't know. Or maybe this goes somewhere else we haven't figured out yet, but I kind of doubt it. I think this actually is just a spare part. Just like there's an extra one of these hurt your finger snappy rings that I think, again, I think it's a spare one in case you lose this one. So now we put the hitch head on. You could put this on either way. Generally, I like to have the opening facing the pin because it makes it really exciting to... No, I'm just kidding. Never mind. Obviously, you can only put this on one way with the opening facing the trailer. So, again, I think we got some powder coating or something on that hole right there that is making it a little tight. No big deal. Nice non-marring mallet. There we go. Now that's driven home, so now this pin should go in. And like I said, kind of make sure that when this snaps, it doesn't catch your finger. That's it. It's amazing to me how noisy this is, that when we have the actual trailer on here and hooked up, this is actually going to be a quieter system. My dirty knees are in the shot. Oh, Steve, you think you're so smart. You don't need the instructions. No. Wrong. All right, so it explains right here that that blue urethane bumper is supposed to go on the underside of this head before I installed it. And it's supposed to actually help with this noise if you're going down the road with the hitch on with no trailer on. So if you don't want to hear this the whole ride there, going to pick up the trailer, which I'm sure my wife doesn't want to hear, I need to pop this off. cubbyhole right here, there is a hole that this is supposed to go in. Yeah, get it back there. Like that. Okay. Voila. Okay. That doesn't really do much to stop that ka-chunking. Just saying. So I didn't want a Kurt hitch. Kurt hitches were cheap, but I guess you get what you pay for. So the thing with the Kurt hitches is, my understanding is they are made in China. If you order a Kurt hitch off of Amazon, it actually says country of origin China. And there's nothing to indicate that that's not correct. As opposed to the manufacturers who are making hitches in the US, which Demco and B&W are the two that I found that are definitely made in the USA, because they are bragging about it, and rightfully so. So, that being said, if you're, if that's your thing, you want to buy American, great. Then you want to look at Demco and you want to look at BMW. I'm not B&W, yeah, right. I don't know about Reese these days. I have a sneaking suspicion that Reese is also now importing their hitches. So when it came down to B&W and this sucker right here, the other thing that sold me on this hitch that I really liked was the way that this locks, the jaw locks around the pin. This uses a one-piece jaw. It's an interesting system that's unique to these hitches. The B&W uses a more traditional two-piece jaw. It's plenty beefy and looks like it's well made, and I think it gives you I think they say something like 340 degrees of contact with the pin, which is really important for that ka-chunking thing. This, when closed, gives you 360 degrees of contact with the pin. Let me show you how. So this is in the open position and in preparation for you to back into the trailer and have the kingpin actually come in here. So what ends up happening is this handle locks in this position, so it's nice. There's no you don't have to put a retaining pin or anything to keep this out like this. You can keep it locked out by installing the pin, which is right here, but my point is, when you back in, what happens is, as you back in and the hitch pin comes in here, it's going to push on, it's going to ride on this ramp right here, and that's going to have the effect of pushing this that way. Now, I'm going to hold on to the handle so that when I do this, this doesn't slam shut the way it normally would when you actually go to hook up. And that's because I don't want my fingers in there when this happens. So I'm going to pull back on the handle a little bit to take a little bit of the pressure off so that I can easily push this. Okay, see how I just pushed it? So you can imagine the pin comes in here, it's going to ride against this, it's going to push this, that's going to release this. And now I'm letting the handle go in against the spring tension, which is pretty strong. Now that my fingers are out of there, I'm going to let this go. That's going to snap shut like that. So now you can see that you've got 360 degrees of contact around your pin. So that's what really sold me on this. Not only that, but once this thing rotates over and it captures that pin, this bar right here, which is thick, this bar is like 1 inch thick of steel. This bar rides over here and basically now locks that so that this can't rotate back. And the only way that this can now rotate back and for this to open up is if this bar moves this way, which you can't do unless you pull the handle out. And just like any hitch, we've got a locking pin, so you can just install this locking pin here, and it's got a little safety bail so that it can't pop out when you're going down the road, and now that's secure. That hitch is not going to come undone. It's really a neat design. I really like it. And when I was watching the video and seeing how this worked, how this mechanism worked, and how it locks, that's what sold me on this sucker. Only time will tell whether or not I made the right choice, though. So the next time you see me, I will be back from New York, and hopefully I will be returning after a successful tow of the new fifth wheel back to the house. And I will give you a rundown, a post-towing rundown of how I felt the hitch performed. Alright guys, I'm back. About a 3-hour drive out and about 3 hours back. A little over 3 hours back. And ended up picking up our new trailer, new to us. It's a 2018 and this is a Grand Design Solitude. I'll probably do a video on this, just kind of a quick look at some point. But this is about the hitch. So how the hitch performed perfectly. So a couple of things that I found interesting that I liked. Hooking up, I really like the way that the mechanism works. You put it into the docking position, so to speak, and as soon as you back up and it locks in that pin, the handle springs back vigorously and locks in pretty positively. And then, you know, just for safety's sake, you always want to check and make sure that this bar right here has fully engaged the other side. And then of course you put your pin in to keep it from coming out when you're going down the road, and that's basically it. So no problems there. How did it perform on the road? Well, before we talk about that, let me just show you guys what's on this thing for a pin box. So this Grand Design Solitude has a Rotaflex Trail Air pin box on it. So what it's got going is this section of the pin box that sits on top of the fifth wheel hitch pivots or is allowed to pivot, and there is a very thick, like over 1 inch thick rubber block in there. So it can't just flop around, but it can compress. And by virtue of that, this is able to absorb a lot of the chucking effect that you tend to get. So the hitch is supposed to help with that also, right? Because of the design of the pin being very captive and very close tolerance. So did I experience chucking? Well, yes and no. Our previous trailer had just a straight pin box on it and didn't have any of that shock absorbing Rotaflex design in it. And our previous hitch was just a straight hitch. It only pivoted in one direction, not two. As you saw at the beginning of this video, I showed that hitch. And so when that one would chuck, it was a pretty violent clunk type of, it was a little more jarring. What I experienced coming home with this thing is what I would call a dampened chucking situation, where you could feel the trailer push and then pull on you, but it was more of a gentle type of rock you back and forth type of situation, and it wasn't constant. So it doesn't cure chucking 100%. It just makes chucking more like softer, so to speak. So this trailer is, you know, the GVW on this trailer is 16,000 pounds. But I mean, the dry weight alone for this trailer, unloaded, is 12,828 pounds. So this trailer is about 2,000 pounds heavier than my previous trailer. I did not do anything as far as my electronic brake control on this. My electronic brake control in this, I forgot what kind it is, but it's a pretty sophisticated one. It's got an accelerometer or a decelerometer in it that can actually sense the motion and actually adjust and kind of like fine-tune the braking. And I think because it's basically learned what it was like to pull the old trailer, that it's kind of screwed up with this trailer. So I was definitely seeing some strange happenings with the braking on this. So I think I've got to, you know, reset that system and get it to learn about the new trailer and I think that might actually help with some of that dampened chucking experience that I was getting. But for the time being, I am going to say that I am very happy with this this hitch, and I would definitely say that you should put it on your short list of considerations if you're looking for a replacement fifth wheel hitch. All right, so I hope this helped anybody who might be in the market for a new hitch, and see you on the road. Take care.